Hi, this is Everett, Everett's Watercolors. Welcome to my studio. I'm broadcasting today from Chesapeake, Virginia, and I'm on live, and this is going out to YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitch. Also, I'll be rebroadcasting it on Instagram later on today. I'm in the studio today with my wife, Gloria,
Hello, everyone.
and she'll be monitoring the broadcast and checking on the chat room. I got the chat room live out there. So you can send me a comment or give me some questions, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. For those of you who are just signing in or first time, please subscribe to my channel and give me a thumbs up and give me a like during the broadcast. I appreciate that. It helps with my rating. Well, today I'm going to do something again a little different. This is wintertime. So last weekend I was out traveling around doing some painting and doing sketching. And because it was so cold out there, it was below freezing. Here in Virginia we're estimating about 28, 29 degrees, which is below freezing overnight and so forth. And I found this great looking ice patch, and I said, wow, now that would be something interesting to paint. So I said, okay, I'll bring it back to the studio and do some planning. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to be painting some ice. And that's a little challenge for an artist, so I always like to challenge myself. Don't always do the same thing over and over again. So I'm going to take you to my overhead camera, and let me show you my setup. Okay, well this is the photograph I took of the location. Now you can see the patch of ice I had on the ground there was a puddle with frozen. And but what I saw there, I saw a painting. I said, wow, that's an interesting shape and lots of texture. And I said, you know, even though you can't recognize it as ice, I'm going to do a paint, but it could also be an abstract. So it's going to be a possibility of several things. Be an ice painting, which I'm going to call it ice textures, or it could be an abstract painting called ice textures. Now what I did now, instead of trying to paint this whole photograph here, what I did is I selected, this area right in here was most interesting, right in here. Right in here. You see the lines and so forth and the texture and the shapes. So I really picked out, and what I did was I cropped this photograph here down to a smaller area. You can see I picked out this looks like a foot or a shoe. You can see that right here on the larger photograph. And this area right in here is what I selected. So I took the larger photograph and I cropped it down to a smaller area. And so this is the area I selected because it gave me a nice, what I figured, shapes. Now, when I look at shapes, I look at three things. Number one is the interesting ages and so forth. But look at here. I got a large shape here in this section. I got a smaller shape up here. And I got a medium-sized shape down here in the corner. So I got three sizes of shapes. A large, small, and medium. So I went ahead and I drew up a little sketch here. So my design sketch, my planning design sketch, I drew out the shapes over here on a little 4x5 card little shape here, and I put in those shapes I was looking at and some of these interesting marks in the ice. Okay, so there's my large shape, my small shape, and my medium-sized shape is going to be down here. Okay, so really I'm going to on ice textures. Number one is a color. There's a gray color and maybe a little dark and light gray. Then there's a value color, some lights and darks on there, and then there's texture, some smooth and some rough areas. So those are the areas I'm going to concentrate on for the complex surface of an ice puddle. So I start out here. Now I took this design here and I transferred it to my watercolor paper, and this is a quarter sheet of a Gemini watercolor paper. Measures are 15 inches long and 11 inches high, and I drew out my design sketch on that. Okay, and so here's the large dark shape here and a small shape here for dark, and I got a medium-sized dark down here in the right corner. So that's my design plan. Okay, so now on my palette I've got basically a minimal palette. I don't need that many colors today, but I'm going to have ultramarine blue, which I like to use a lot anyway. Ultramarine blue up here is my darker blue. Then I have a lighter blue, which is cerulean blue. It'll be some of the lighter grays. Then I'm going to use Alizarin Crimson for a little bit of color change. I'll be using Payne's gray over here in the corner. That's over. I put it over in the corner of my palette right here, the top corner. Then down here I'm going to use it now. And there's some lighter colors in there, but I'm going to mix them up to be a little bit of yellow ochre down here in the corner, a little warmer color, and a little bit of burnt sienna. Now I'm also going to use burnt sienna in the spray bottle. I have my palette in a bottle, dot spray with a white top, sold exclusively on Everett Watercolors. I'm going to have that with this little bit of burnt sienna. I'm going to use for spraying and so forth, for texture. Okay. Okay, so let me move the paint tubes aside here, and move the paint bottle, spray bottle out a little bit. Now on the brushes, I'm going to be starting out with my Hockey brushes. These are the silver brush Hockey. This is the large and the medium size. I'll be using those today. And then I'm going to use a couple other brushes. These are Holbein brushes, synthetic. This is a number 16 round, which I use a lot. Number 16 round. It comes to a nice point, but it holds lots of water. And it's a number 16 round size. Then I'll also use the little 1/2 inch flat brush. These are both Holbein natural synthetic brushes, but they're very good. All the supplies are on my website, including the Holbein Artists Watercolors also. Okay, let me put that aside. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to wet the paper. So I'm going to use the large Hockey, which is plain water. And the Hockey brush is made out of goat's hair, and it holds a lot. It's a natural hair. It holds a lot of water, and so it's really good for. And I've got, instead of taping it down, I've got a couple clips here on the corners of the paper to hold it down, keep it from moving around on me. So I'm going to wet the paper real good. So it's going to be a little wet on wet here in the beginning to get started. I've got lots of water, wet it down, and I look to the side here, I can see the glare on the paper a little bit, so I know the paper's nice and wet. And I'm going to spread it out here with this large Hockey. Okay. And I check the paper, it looks like it's all wet. I look at it from the side. I can see the glare on the paper. And you can see, I'll show it here, you see the wet paper, it's wet all over. Okay, now the first color I'm going to put down, I'm going to put a light gray. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up a little mixture here. I'm going to use a little bit of Payne's gray. I'm going to mix it in with a little bit of yellow ochre down here at the bottom. Okay, and a little touch of the cerulean blue. A little touch of cerulean blue. Okay, that'll give me a great, nice, what I call a light gray, but it'll be the light color of the ice. I'm going to put a lot of water here, so I'll need a big mix. So I'm going to put a lot of water here. Scooping out with a brush, and I'm going to use the middle-size Hockey brush. This is a middle-size Hockey. And I can see I'm mixing up now, make sure I get a nice light gray. Adding lots of water to that mixture. But there's 3 colors in there mixed up. That's going to be the light gray. It's going to be the light gray color. A little more yellow ochre, a little more Payne's gray, and a little bit of that cerulean blue to give it a little bit of color. Because the sky, the sun was out then. There was a little bit of blue sky out there shining, so a little reflection. But we'll just pretend that's there. And lots of water, lots of water. Okay, well, the paper is wet, and I'm ready to go. So I'm going to put a light coat of light gray over the white areas. I won't have to worry about the dark areas. So they're going to go over all this area here. This is all going to be ice on this side. So this is the lightest color of the ice. This light color, which is almost white. Ice was not white. It was a light gray. So I'm putting in this light gray as my first level, my first layer. And when that dries, watercolor dries about 30% lighter, so that'll dry a lighter color when it dries. And I'm gonna come up here. There's a little bit of ice. So you can see now I'm coloring in the color of the ice, leaving the darker color for I guess it was a little bit of grass and a little bit of ground. So clip out of the way. Okay, I'll come down here now. That's the this ice comes in here. Yeah, it comes in here. This is ice too. This is all ice. This is all ice. So you can see that's I'm leaving the white areas. That'll be for the those dark areas I showed you about. This is ice down here too. I really didn't need to put that on there. That's okay. It's not gonna hurt anything. It's just gonna be coloring. Just wipe that off a little bit. Okay, more ice down here in this corner. So in the shape of the ice, you can see it's a very abstract, but it's very interesting. There's a block of ice over here. Then there was another section of ice over here, and then there was pieces of the grass and the weeds and so forth in between. There's a puddle in the park. That's where the rain had fallen and created a puddle, and then it froze over. So there's my opportunity there. There, I'll show you. That's all the wet now. That's going to be the light area of the ice. Okay, and I'll show you the picture again. That's going to be the light color here of the ice. It's not exactly white, so it's a light color. Now, while that's drying, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to give myself a little texture. Now, I'm going to take a tissue. Just take a tissue, and I'm going to just fold it up a little bit, and I'm going to just lay it down and just abstract. I'm just going to put it in different places, and that will pick up some of that wet paint or wet pigment, and that'll give me a little bit of texture of the ice, because there were different. You know, wasn't perfectly the same color. If you look in there, you'll see there's little light areas and dark areas here in the ice. So I really like that. Okay, so that's what I use the tissue for. Just kind of put it down and pick up a little bit of that paint. Okay, now I'm going to dry the paint. I'm going to dry the painting now. So I get my hair dryer and dry it up. Okay, so the first stage was to get the light value of the ice. And that was a combination of cerulean blue, Payne's gray, a little bit of yellow ochre. Give me a nice gray. I went in, I covered the ice areas with that light color. And then I took a tissue and I blotted it in certain places just to pick it up to lighten some of the areas, and we'll do that. Let's see if I can get any more out. It's still a little bit damp. Let me pick it up. So I'm just going to pick up little pieces here. Just lay the tissue down. Just get little areas of white. A little more. Get a little texture there. There. I'll let that go. Now we'll continue to dry. But remember, I wet the paper down first. So this is wet on wet. I wet the paper down completely with water, just plain water, using a large hockey brush. Okay, all right. So let's see. I'm not going to paint on top of that yet. So what I'm going to do is now the paper is stretched. When you wet paper and you dry it, you're going to find out the paper will stretch a little bit. So you kind of move it around with these clips a little bit, get it flatter. That's one way of doing it. I didn't want to tape it down. Keep it loose. All right, that's good enough. All right, now I'm going to mix up some of that darker mix now. I'm going to go in and put in the some of that leaf mixture. You'll remember here when I showed you, there's grass and leaves and so forth here in between. So that's what I'm going to mix up right now. Okay, so that's going to be a little darker. I'm going to use yellow ochre, and I'm going to add a little bit of burnt sienna to that. So that'll be like the leaf colors. A little bit of burnt sienna, yellow ochre, and I'm going to add a touch of Payne's gray. I want to darken it up because it's dark. It's a darker. Those colors are darks. They're going to be contrasting with the lighter color of the ice. Okay, so it'll be a dark brown with some lighter colors in there with the yellow ochre a little bit, but you know, it's kind of a mixture. Now what I'm going to do now is going to go ahead and put in with a brush stroke. Now this is that dark that colors. Just going to kind of get some brush strokes in there. Now these are leaves and dirt, everything that's not ice. And I'll pick up a little more of that yellow ochre. Get a little yellow ochre in there. So that this number 16 round, you know, this makes a nice shape, and I can do little corners here because it's a rough edge of the ice. That's another part of the texture. The edge of the ice wasn't exactly smooth. It wasn't a smooth edge. It was a ragged edge because of the way it dried on the ground. Get some more of that yellow ochre in there. So this is partially leaves and twigs. There was a little bit over here too. This little section, this little patch in here. This was interesting. They're not all the same. A little leaf shape. So this painting, I didn't paint a full painting before because number one, I practiced the techniques. I practiced some of the colors and the approach and the plan the painting plan. But I didn't really do a whole practice paint. So this is really the first time I've done the whole painting finished. So this is going to be a finished product when when we're done here, and it's going to be one of a kind, like every other painting that you do. That you don't do them exactly the same, and that's a good idea. You don't always paint them the same way. You use a little different techniques. This one here. Pick up some of that dark. It's a little bit darker up in here. A little bit of sun was shining up here. It may indicate a little bit of that. Just an indication. A little bit of sun up here. A little bit of sunlight, and the ice was frozen. It was not melting at all. It was completely hard ice. I didn't want to step on it. I didn't want to break it. I wanted to get the picture of what I saw and go from there. Okay, now down here in the corner, here's another. Remember, I got the large shape over here. I got the small, and I got the medium down here. So those are the principles I learned about design. You'll see that in a lot of books when you read that you got three sizes, and that's the mama, baby, and daddy bear. The daddy, mama, baby bear. Three little bears. Three sizes of shapes. So if you have similar shapes, and these are similar shapes of the ground, I made them all different. And really, they were pretty close in the photograph. When I cropped it, I pretty well cropped it that way also. It came out to be a large, medium, and small shape. But I planned it that way. I planned it that way so that when I made the cropping of the photograph, I had three different shapes of three different sizes. So that's a good design idea, is to have three shapes, at least three shapes, different sizes. Okay, now we have Now I can, as I said here, but I can take my dot spray bottle here. I got burnt sienna in the dot spray. And I'll apply it in a pump over here in my rinse bucket. Just tap it a couple times. Get the Okay, then I'll come over here now and I'll go lightly tap, and I'll put a little bit of texture into this little section over here, just so there's a little color change, and that will dry. That will dry and give me a little shape also. It won't be perfectly flat, so I'll put that in there, and that'll give it some interest. I think that it really needs to have a little definition there in that. And it's not exactly like the photograph. I don't care about the photograph anymore. The photograph was just a reference, and I want to work on my design now. So now I got a little bit of texture. I can go back in and add to that. Let's see, this part up here. Okay, now I want to go in. Now I'm going to play around with the ice. The next step I want to do is now I've got these dark sections in here, which is really the ice that's frozen, but it's got a darker area. It's not the ice wasn't broken up. It's just the darker ice area. So I'm going to mix up a darker mix now. Payne's gray, and I'm going to add another color. I'm going to put in a little bit of Alizarin Crimson. A little bit of Alizarin Crimson. That changes the color a little bit. It makes that really a real dark color. And a little bit of burnt sienna in there also. It gives a little bit of warmth. Just a touch of warmth, a little bit of Alizarin Crimson, a lot of that, not a lot, but some Payne's gray. Okay, now I'm going to take the number 16 round. Now I'm going to go ahead and put in those dark areas. And that's what the round brush is going to do. Let me move over here so you can see you can follow me along if you want to follow or watch. So I'm going to go ahead and put those lines in there. And I'm using a round brush to give me a nice smaller mark. They were kind of smooth, so I'll smooth it. They were curves, but they were also a little bit smooth. That's the way the ice froze in the spot. Okay, so that's one, and then there was another one over here. They were different sizes. This is what really intrigued me, was this shaping here. This is the way it froze. This is the particular way nature froze the ice. Temperature drop, the amount of water was on the ground. Also the elevation of the ground, because there was different levels here. This was an old park, which is not perfectly level, so there was all kinds of little uneven parts of the ground. And that's where the ice settled. And there's a little bit over here connection. A little bit of connection there. I want to connect that darks in with the dark spot there. So I have the darks connected. Then that's another good. There's no such thing as rules. It's just another idea to have, is to connect your darks so that you have a pathway through the painting. And I'm going to smooth this area out, but a little bit more over here. A little bit, smooth it out just a little bit more. Smooth out the edges. Okay. Now you can see what I'm doing here is I'm putting in those dark lines, and they were smooth. They were smooth. So I'm trying to follow it, make that look like it was. But I'm not going to hold myself to it entirely. It just gives me an idea how to do it. So remember I said this is my first attempt at doing this whole painting. I did some practice sessions with how I was going to paint it, but I wanted to wait till I got into the studio and live to do it. And watch my head on the camera. Okay. Now this one here, these get a little bit thinner now as I come in. They were thicker there, now they get a little bit thinner as I come around this section. It just looked like, when I looked at the photographs, it looked like a little shoe or a boot. And that was kind of interesting. You know, when you look at shapes, you can make different stories about what they are. Look like a little boot. Then this one here, kind of curved around here. Let's see, this one came in this way, and it's going to come in It's smooth. Let's see, this is much smaller here. I don't want to get them too thick here. This is really nice. So I'm using the very tip of the number 16 round, which I can do. I can round it up in the palette, load it up real good on the side, and twirl it so it gets a nice sharp point. And then I can come in here and just barely touch the tip. It gives me a nice small mark. Okay. Okay, that part there was done. That part there was done. That part, no, there's some over here, bigger ones. Now, okay, that section over here is done. Now, this section down here had some other mark. There was a mark on. Load up the brush, and make this mark in here. Again, there's a dark spot in here. Now, this is where the variety comes in. Now, they're not all going to be the same. Marks over here are going to have some curves in, but they're going to be different than this curve over here. And let's see, I got a mark in here. So I'm using the photograph. I'm using the photograph here to get some of these different shapes over here on this side here. I finished the side up here in the top. Now I'm moving down here to the right side over here. Okay, so I'm trying to just look at the photograph and trying to get a little bit of thought there. Just give me an idea of what I want. I picked this section out because I like the shapes that were there. And there's a long piece right here. So I'm going to use the same brush. I'm going to use the number 16 round. Use the same brush for all these little marks. I'm going to load up the brush on the side, on the edge, and paint the whole thing. Okay, this section down here comes around. Kind of does like a little curve here, which is interesting. Again, very, very interesting shapes here. And that was one fascinating thing about this piece of this patch of ice was all these different shapes. And this one out here, you can see how if you look at the paper now, you see when I covered that with the paint, it looked like it was going to be dark. But see, now that it's dry, that paper is almost white again. But it's not white; it's a light gray, which is what the color of the ice was, a light gray. And as watercolor dries, it gets much lighter. And so even though it looked dark in the beginning when it was wet, it dried out to just what I wanted, a nice dry white area. So this one over here, finishing off the X section here. I'm over here now. I'm up in this section here on this top here. Okay, those sections there. I think that's enough of that. Okay, now I got a couple little spots over here I want to fill in with some more darks. I want to go back to that mixture I had of burnt sienna, a little bit of yellow ochre, and a little bit, just a touch of Payne's gray. Just a little, get that. I want to get that brown mix in there, dark brown. A little more of that. Okay. Now there's a from the photograph. Now I'm going to fill in this section here. This was also part of the large area on this side over here. So this was grass and weeds and so forth on this side. This will break this up really nice. And because there was a lot of white over here, so now I'm putting in some of that darker ground. I'll pick up some more of that yellow ochre. Mix it in there. And this section here. Okay. Okay. Section over here. Okay. All right. Now I think what I'll do is let me take another brush here, this little flat brush I want to use. And I'm going to go in. I'm going to make some marks. I'm going to mix up a little bit of yellow ochre and some of that dark brown I just had which is burnt sienna and Payne's gray. And I'm going to go in here and just going to put in some marks. And these are going to indicate some of those leaves and twigs in there. So I'm just going to do some rough brush strokes, but it's trying to get more texture into some of these areas. So a little more contrast down in here, a little dark. Get some more darks in here. So I'm increasing the paint intensity here, making it a little bit darker, just by adding another layer of paint on top of what's there. Another mixture of that dark brown. Okay. All right, now I think what I do is I'm going to put in. I'm going to mix up a darker gray. Now this is something that is going to be. This is my artistic license. I want to put a little bit darker value here. Not in all spaces, but in one of these. I'm going to break these lighter areas up now into more. Cohesive, and I'll call it cohesive, or continuity, a little more continuity or unity. So I want to take a little bit of this mixture, it's a darker gray, and put in a little bit of shadow, a hint of a shadow up here, especially up in here. So this lighter gray, I'm just going to kind of glaze. I'm going to kind of glaze over this area and put in a little darker shadow up in that section. Now what I'm doing now is I'm going back to the larger photograph, and I'm trying to get a feel for it. So you can see there's some shadows across some of these patches here. There's a tree shadow here that's on the ground from this section. So I can play around with that a little bit, just to get a little bit of interest here of the shape. And so I'm going to come down here and I'm going to add in some shadows across some of these areas, just to give it a little more feel. This is out in the woods. The trees are around, the sun is out, and I can get a feeling here of this section here. This section had some shadows across it. So I'm really improvising now. This is what you call artistic license. To add in some change. So I want to put a shadow pattern across some of these white areas. And that's going to maybe build in a unity or an interest. And let's see, I'm going to go across here some more. Now I'm not going to put that tree in there like the shadow in the photograph. I don't think I need to do that. I just want to put some shadows across here, just to break up that white area a little bit. To show there are some shadows. Mainly around the edges, on the outside edges, so that most of the light parts are going to be toward the center area. Leave a white area. Okay. Okay. All right. Now my last step at this point is to add in a little more texture. A little more texture. So I'm going to take my flat brush here. I'm going to do this two ways. I'm going to take a brushful here, and I'm going to do a little splatter just to get some marks on the paper. A little splatter, just to mess it up just a little bit. So this will add a little texture to the area, the elements. Now I even had a small toothbrush here that I can load that up with paint from the palette, and I can just hold that in my finger, and I can do a little spray, a little fine spray. Mix up some more paint here. A little more of that Payne's gray. Okay, now I load up the toothbrush. Just load it up like I would a paintbrush, and I go in there with my finger. I'm going to just run my thumb across the toothbrush and get some fine marks in there. Get a little more texture. Now this wet paper over here, this won't, when it dries, this won't show up very much, because when it dries, it will dry much lighter anyway. Okay, I think I'll take one more. Now this area over here, I've got some more dark areas I can put in. Okay. Now I think I'll take a darker, this marker. I'm going to add some more Payne's gray, a little more burnt sienna, and I think if you look at the photograph, you'll see the dark edges here next to the ice. I'm going to go ahead and emphasize that a little bit more, especially along here. Maybe a little shadow from that one section of ice, just to show a little shadow, a little edge. Make that light and dark really show the contrast really come out of there. And on the side over here also. So this large darker is going to have the most emphasis on the contrast. So right now I'm adding a little more value, a little more edge here to this edge of the ice here. This kind of is casting a little shadow on the background there a little bit. Also a little more texture look. Because this was rough ground. It was it was dirt and weeds and twigs and leaves and so forth, and this ice was there. This ice patch was a puddle of water that froze in the low temperature and was laying on top of all this. So there's all kinds of weeds and twigs and so forth underneath. I'll put just a little. Now I'm not going to put as much up here on this side. Just put a little touch here and there. Just a little touch. And the last place I want to put is down here on this side. So put a little more, a little texture down here. So I'm emphasizing the edge of that ice now. Give a little more contrast between the background and the ice laying on top. The ice is laying on top of this dark background. Okay. Okay. That started to run on me a little bit there. You can see here, this was still a little bit wet. So what happens, wet on wet, this started to bleed off a little bit over here. So let me put the dryer on. Let me dry up a little bit. Okay. Okay, I'm going to leave this soft edge alone. There's a hard edge here, but leave this soft because sometimes when the ice freezes, it freezes a little bit over, and there's a little bit of color on top of the ice. So that's okay. That looks like there's a little bit of ice on top of the ground, and the ground on top of the ice. So that's a good spot right here. So the most interesting part right now is right in this section, right in here, and I left the white showing. The light area is showing right in here, okay. A little space up there, but everything else is darker. The corners are darker. This is a little bit in shadow on this corner over here, and we have a flow. We have a diagonal flow from this side all the way up to the top, okay. And lots of texture in there from the ground. Now, one thing about ice is it's very, it's if you look at the photograph, you can see that there's color underneath the ice, but here it's almost white or a little bit of gray, and you can not really see underneath the ice at all. The ice really covers the ground, and only what you can see is what's laying on top of the ice. A little bit of leaves and a few branches. But the reason I chose this one was because it had such an interesting shape, and I think I pretty well captured that. I think I got the shape there. I got the long section in here, the large. I got the small up here at the top, and I got this section down here on the right corner, which is the medium side. Medium, small, and large dark over here. Okay. And what I could do, no, I don't want to do that. I'll just leave it alone. Thinking about connecting this side, but this section here is together. That's close enough. Okay, let me take the clips off here. I'm gonna put a mat board around this, and let's take a look at it. Let's see. Okay. I'll put the blue border around it. Woo! And bring it down a little bit. Okay. Yeah, I think it worked out because this is really what I'm going to call it ice textures, because of the smooth and the light, the smoothness and the darkness and the shadows and so forth, and the texture of the ground that was next to it. The edges are rough, but the smooth, almost like glass on top. Okay, almost like glass, very smooth surface. So we don't want to disturb that. And I think the shape I have here is just about what I saw on location, and I think it came up pretty much. The painting ice or painting glass is a little bit of a challenge, but I recommend you try that. And if you find a nice puddle, a puddle of ice that's frozen and so forth, take a couple pictures of it and study that. It'll make an interesting painting and a piece of art. So that's my drawing. That's my painting. I did some practice ones, but they're not even. This is probably the best one I've done so far. So, Ice Textures is the name of my painting, and I'll be posting this on my website and also on the other links I have. All right, let's go back to my main camera. Let me sit down here. Ooh. All right, well that's painting ice is as I said before, and I'll say it again. Painting ice is a challenge because it's the difficulty of getting the proper values and the color and the textures, but it's something you can practice and get better at it the more you do it. So this is the latter part of January. We still got another month or so of cold weather. So there'll be more opportunities to capture some ice puddles or places that have patches of ice. And that'd be an interesting subject. But number one, I picked this one out because of the interesting shape that I had on the ground and the darks and the lights and so forth. I think you saw that from the photographs I did. And then I cropped out the piece that I liked to make the painting. Do we have any comments?
No, just hello.
Hello.
To Brazen.
Yeah, hi Brazen.
Carded.
Yes. Well, thanks for checking in, and I'll be in the next week at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to do another watercolor demonstration. Right now, I don't know what it'll be, but we'll find something interesting. I like to go out on the weekends and scout out some things and look at places and lights, especially lights and darks and contrast. And I'll be on this evening at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be doing a drawing. So you want to catch me then at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Simply Drawing with Everett. And then on Sunday, I have another program. I just started it last week. It's called Anyone Can Draw with One Line. Using one line only and draw a subject. And I did one last week, and it's on my website. It's on YouTube, and also I put it on Facebook. So it's out there for you to see on YouTube, Everett's Watercolors. And then I'm going to do another one this Sunday, and I'll let you just tune in to see what that one's about. But it's called anyone can draw with one line only, and it starts at 2:00 p.m. Sunday Eastern Standard Time. And I'll probably put the announcement out on Friday, but then you'll see the actual video on Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. Okay, the Thursday shows today and tonight are all live. The one on Sunday will be a pre-recorded video, so you'll just find the video on YouTube and watch it from there. All right. Well, thank you for watching in, and I'll see you next week. Same place, same time, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So bye.